I heard the notification ping at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was a Gmail alert. Someone had shared a Google Drive folder with me. I didn't recognize the email address. When I opened it, I saw a single PDF file labeled Family Fund Monthly Expenses. My stomach dropped because I hadn't been invited to any family fund. I hadn't agreed to any expenses. And then I scrolled through the folder's share history and saw the timestamps. My mom had created this folder 3 weeks ago. She'd added my brother, my sister, my aunt, and even my cousin, but the access log showed she'd specifically blocked me from notifications. That was the first clue. But the real shock came when I scrolled to the second tab and found a folder named For Reference Only, Do Not Share with My Name. Inside was a spreadsheet, and on that spreadsheet, every single financial move involving my name, my accounts, my property deed, my inheritance timeline, was listed with calculations I'd never authorized. I'm Sarah Chen, 34 years old. I work as a senior contracts manager for a tech company here in Seattle, Washington. I've spent the last 15 years building a career around one core skill: reading documents carefully, spotting discrepancies, and knowing exactly what I'm signing. But nothing prepared me for what I was about to find out about my own family. If you want to know what happened next, how I went from confused to furious to utterly strategic, keep listening. Let me paint the picture of my family first, because you need to understand why this hit so hard. My mom, Linda, is a woman who measures success in 2 ways: how much money you have and how much you tell other people you have. She's 67 now, retired from her bookkeeping job, living in the home my dad left her when he passed 8 years ago. That house is worth about $890,000 in today's market. My dad's will left everything to my mom, with the understanding that when she passed, the estate would split equally between me and my 2 younger siblings, Marcus and Jennifer. Marcus is 31. He's a mortgage broker, which means he's always talking about interest rates and equity and leverage. He's charming when he wants to be, but he's also perpetually in debt. Designer watches, leased cars, the whole thing. Jennifer is 28, works in event planning, and she's the golden child in my mom's eyes. Pretty, bubbly, married to a guy named Derek who works in tech. They live in Portland, about 3 hours south. They're the ones mom brags about at her book club. Me, I'm the practical one, the one who reads contracts, the one who asks questions, the one who moved away from the family chaos and built something solid in Seattle. And that, more than anything, is what started this. Here's what my family did. They decided I was selfish. It started small. I'd visit maybe 4 times a year. My mom would say things like, "Your sister came by last weekend and brought me groceries," or "Your brother helped me with my taxes." These little comments, lobbed casually during dinner, designed to make me feel distant. When I'd offer to help, to pay for something, to schedule time, I was told it was fine, don't worry about it. But then I'd hear through my aunt that my mom had been complaining about me to the extended family. "Sarah's so busy with her fancy job," I heard she'd said. "She doesn't have time for her own mother. Never mind that I called her every Sunday. Never mind that I'd taken 2 weeks off when she had knee surgery and stayed at her house, managing her medications, doing her physical therapy, driving her to appointments." That detail didn't fit the narrative. 5 years ago, my dad's estate was finally fully settled. There were some taxes, some legal fees, but the bulk of the house and his investment portfolio went to my mom. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office when he explained the will to all of us. He was very clear. This was my mom's property now, to do with as she wished, but the inheritance that would pass to us children was documented and set aside. My share, based on the current valuations at that time, was projected to be around $295,000. Not a fortune, but a real foundation. My mom looked at that number and said, "Well, we'll see. Things change." That phrase. I replay it constantly now, because I remember thinking it was a threat, but I didn't want to believe my own mother would threaten me over money, so I let it go. Then, 3 years ago, my mom started going to a financial advisor. Not a registered financial advisor, I checked later, but someone from her church who claimed he could help her optimize her assets for the benefit of the family. His name was David Kramer, and he became a regular fixture at family dinners. He'd talk about tax strategies and estate planning, and he'd always mention how important it was to protect wealth from people who might not have the family's best interests at heart. He'd look at me when he said it. My mom started making small changes. She created a revocable trust. She opened new bank accounts. She started talking about how complicated everything had become, and how glad she was that she had people helping her manage it all. I should have asked more questions. I was trained to ask questions, but I didn't want to be the suspicious daughter. I didn't want to be the one who seemed greedy or paranoid. That was my mistake. The invoice arrived on a Tuesday in February. It came as an email to my work account, not my personal email, which made it easy for my mom to miss. The subject line was Payment Due, Estate Management and Family Coordination Services, February 2024. I almost deleted it as spam, but my name was on it, and so was an itemized list of charges. The email was from something called Family First Financial Solutions. The invoice was addressed to my mom, but there was a note that said, "Please forward to all beneficiaries for transparency." Below that was a PDF attached. I opened it. Here's what it said. Estate Planning Consultation, $2,400. Family Communications Coordination, wait $800. Account Monitoring and Oversight, $3,200. Tax Optimization Strategy Development, $4,100. Monthly Trustee Support, $1,500. Contingency Planning, Medical Legal, $2,800. Total, $15,800. Amount due by February 28, 2024. And then, at the bottom, in a note, to be divided equally among beneficiaries. Sarah's portion, $3,150. I read it 3 times. I couldn't make sense of it. I'd never agreed to any of this. I'd never signed anything authorizing anyone to manage my account or monitor my finances. I called my mom. "Hi, honey," she answered. Her voice was already defensive. "I was wondering when you'd call." "Mom, I got an invoice for $3,150 addressed to me from some financial services company. What is this?" There was a pause, a long one. "Oh, that's just David helping us organize things. It's nothing to worry about." "It's not nothing, Mom. It's almost $4,000. For what exactly?" "For managing the estate. Sweetie, you know things have gotten complicated. David charges a reasonable fee. Everyone agrees it's worth it." "Everyone? I didn't agree to it. I wasn't even consulted." "Well, you're being consulted now," she said, and her tone shifted. It became cold. "This is something your brother and sister and I have decided is best for the family's financial health. If you have a problem with it, you can discuss it with them." I hung up. Not dramatically. I just said, "I'll look into this," and ended the call. But my hands were shaking. I sat at my desk for 10 minutes, staring at the invoice. Then I did something that would change everything. I went back to that forwarded email and clicked on the previous messages in the thread. They were there. The entire conversation history, dated back 3 weeks. My mom had initially sent the invoice to Marcus with a note. "Let's wait on sending this to Sarah. She'll just make a fuss." Then Marcus replied, "She'll probably want to argue about the fees anyway. Better to present it as a done deal." Then David Kramer had chimed in. "Suggest framing it as a family decision that benefits everyone. It'll be harder for her to refuse if she thinks she's being unreasonable. My sister Jennifer, should we tell her about the trust changes yet? Or wait?" And then my mom, "Wait, not until everything is locked down. I don't want her getting lawyers involved or making a scene. You know how she is." I must have read those messages 50 times. I felt physically ill. This wasn't a financial management plan. This was a coordinated strategy to exclude me from decisions about money that was supposed to be mine. But that wasn't even the worst part. I forwarded the entire email chain to myself, created a folder on my personal computer labeled Evidence, and started documenting everything. Then I clicked deeper into the shared Google Drive that had been accidentally sent to me. I found the folder labeled Do Not Share with Sarah. Inside was a spreadsheet. The title was Estate Distribution, Proposed Adjustments. The spreadsheet laid out my family's entire plan. Under my name, there was a column for current projected inheritance, $295,000. But next to that was another column, adjusted after services and management fees, $198,750. Beneath that was a note in my mom's handwriting. Reduction justified due to lack of participation in family matters and failure to provide elder care support. Below that was Jennifer's calculation. She'd projected her own inheritance at $295,000, but had written, "No reduction, has been supportive, brings grandchildren by regularly." Marcus had written, "Temporarily increased to $350,000 pending Q2 refinancing discussion." My mom had added a note at the bottom. "These adjustments ensure that estate reflects the values we hold as a family. Those who contribute get more. Those who neglect get less. This is fair." I sat in my office bathroom for 20 minutes. What killed me wasn't just the money, though the money mattered. It was the narrative they'd built to justify it. They'd reframed basic financial theft as a moral consequence. I hadn't called enough. I hadn't visited enough. I hadn't volunteered enough of my time. Therefore, I didn't deserve what my own father had left to me. But here's the thing about being trained in contract law. You start seeing loopholes. You start seeing bad faith. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my family execute the emotional layer of their plan. My mom called me one evening and said she'd been having health issues. Chest pains, she said. The doctor didn't know what it was. She might need surgery. She was scared. Would I come home for a few days? I bought a plane ticket for the following Friday, but before I went, I called her doctor. I had authorization to do that from years back. The receptionist was confused. "Your mom doesn't have any scheduled procedures," she said. "She had a regular checkup last month, and everything was fine." I knew then that this was strategy. Create a crisis, get me home, get me in a room with the family, and execute whatever the next step was. I went anyway, but I went prepared. When I got to my mom's house, I found her sitting in the living room with Jennifer and Derek. Marcus was on a video call on the laptop. David Kramer was there too, sitting on the far edge of the couch like he'd been invited into the family inner circle. "Oh, honey, you came," my mom said, and she hugged me. She felt fine. She hugged the same way she always did. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Better now that you're here," she said. "Why don't we we sit down? There's something we need to discuss. They'd choreographed it perfectly. My mom sat next to me. Jennifer sat across from me with Derek standing behind her like a support beam. Marcus's face was on the screen, and David Kramer sat slightly to the side, like a neutral party. Sarah, my mom started, and her voice was gentle, like she was talking to a child. We've been worried about you. Worried about me? You've been so distant, so focused on your career. You don't call as much as you used to. When you do visit, you seem distracted. We feel like we're losing you. Mom, I call you every Sunday. We FaceTime. Yes, but it's not the same as being here, Jennifer interjected. It's not the same as Jennifer who actually shows up. There it was, the comparison, the setup. We want to help you find balance, my mom continued. We want to give you an opportunity to be more involved in the family again, to contribute, to show that you care. David Kramer leaned forward. What your mom is saying is that estate planning is a family activity now. It's an expression of values, and we'd like you to be part of that, to choose to be part of that. By paying $3,950 for services I didn't authorize, I kept my voice level. I'd practiced this voice in the mirror the night before. That's a small investment in family cohesion, David said, and he smiled. He actually smiled, like we were in on something together. I'm not paying it, I said. I don't consent to any of this. Whatever adjustments you've made to the estate, reverse them. The temperature in the room changed. I watched it happen. My mom's face went tight. Jennifer looked shocked, like I'd just thrown a drink in her face. Derek shifted uncomfortably. Marcus's voice came through the laptop speaker, smaller, uncertain. Sarah, come on. We're just trying to— I know exactly what you're trying to do, I said, and it's not happening. My mom stood up. You know what? This is exactly why we made these decisions. You're ungrateful. You're selfish. Your father— and here she stopped, but we all knew what was coming. Your father would be ashamed of you. That was always her nuclear option. She didn't say it this time. Maybe she knew it would be too much. Instead, she said, I think you should leave. I stood up. Fine, I said, but I'm calling a lawyer in the morning, and if any money is transferred out of any account that has my name on it, I'm filing a fraud report. I drove back to the airport that night. On the plane, I opened my phone and took screenshots of every message, every email, every spreadsheet. That's when the texts started coming. First, from Jennifer, you embarrassed us. Mom is crying. Then from Marcus, this was about helping her. You made it about money. You're a horrible daughter. Then from my mom, 3 messages in a row. I can't believe you spoke to me that way. After everything I've done for you, I'm removing you from my will entirely. I didn't respond. I just saved every message, every single one. I created a Word document and started a timeline. That wasn't even the worst part. 2 days after I returned to Seattle, my aunt called me. Sarah, honey, she said, and her voice was sympathetic, which meant bad news. Your mom is telling everyone that you refused to help her with her medical crisis. What medical crisis? I called her doctor. There is no medical crisis. Well, that's not what she's saying. She's saying you refused to come home and help her. She's saying you're cutting her out because of an inheritance dispute. There is no inheritance dispute. She's trying to steal my money. There was a long silence. Then my aunt said very carefully, that's a serious accusation, Sarah. Have you considered that you might be misunderstanding what your mom is trying to do? She's gotten older. She wants to make sure the family is taken care of. Maybe the way she's going about it isn't perfect, but her heart is in the right place. I felt something crack inside my chest. This was the weaponization of family loyalty. This was the nuclear option disguised as concern. If my heart was in the right place while trying to take $96,250 from each of my children, would that make it okay? I asked. I think you're being dramatic, my aunt said, and then she hung up. Within 48 hours, the narrative had spread through every family channel. My cousins called. My uncle sent a Facebook message asking me to reconsider my stance. My grandmother, my dad's mother, sent me a card saying she was disappointed in my values. I started getting texts from people I hadn't heard from in years. They'd seen posts in a private family group chat, a chat I'd been screenshotted out of, where my mom was sharing her version of events. She wasn't lying exactly. She was just selecting certain truths. Sarah questioned whether I was competent to make financial decisions. I questioned whether David Kramer had credentials. Sarah refused to help me during a health crisis. I told her I wouldn't pay fraudulent fees. Sarah prioritized her career over family. I lived 3 hours away and called weekly. The final straw came when my brother Marcus got engaged. My mom posted a photo of him and his fiancée on Facebook with the caption, "Watching my son step into adulthood fills me with pride." Unlike some family members, Marcus understands the importance of being present and appreciative. It had 47 likes. My cousins had commented, "Sarah could learn from this. Family first, always. So glad you have Marcus's support, Linda." I sat in my apartment, reading these comments from people I'd grown up with, and I felt the isolation they were designed to create. This was a coordinated campaign, and it was working. I'd started getting texts from friends asking if everything was okay at home. My manager had asked if there was anything affecting my work performance. Apparently, my mom had called my company's main line and asked to speak to my supervisor about family concerns. That was the moment I stopped being angry and started being strategic. I hired an attorney on March 4th. Her name was Rebecca Walsh, and she specialized in elder law and financial elder abuse. When I walked into her office, a small practice in downtown Seattle with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Sound. I handed her a folder with every screenshot, every email, every message, organized chronologically. She took about 45 minutes to read through everything. Then she set the folder down and looked at me over her glasses. "Okay," she said. "Your mom and this Kramer character are running a multi-step fraud scheme. The invoice, the spreadsheet, the social pressure campaign, it's all designed to slowly isolate you, make you question your own reality, and then execute a financial transfer while you're emotionally compromised. It's actually quite sophisticated. Is it illegal?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Multiple counts of attempted financial elder abuse, unauthorized use of personal information, potentially wire fraud if that invoice crosses state lines. And depending on whether she's trying to change the deed on that house or any of the asset accounts, we could be talking about elder fraud. You're lucky you caught it. Lucky, I repeated. The word felt wrong. Most people don't catch it until after the money's gone, Rebecca said. You have documentation. That's everything. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca filed a legal notice with my mom and her attorney, instructing them to cease and desist from any financial decisions involving my name, my accounts, or any assets tied to my father's estate. She also requested a full accounting of the Family First Financial Solutions services and who exactly had authorized the charges. This is when things got interesting. My mom's attorney, a man named Gerald Hoffman, fired back with a response claiming that my mom had the right to arrange her estate as she saw fit, and that the invoice was simply a proposed service that I was free to reject. He argued that there was no binding contract, and therefore no fraud. Rebecca responded by filing a complaint with the Washington State Bar Association against both the attorney and David Kramer, arguing that Kramer was operating as a financial advisor without proper licensing. She also requested that the court freeze any asset movements until a full investigation could take place. This meant that on paper, my mom couldn't move money, couldn't change the deed, couldn't execute any financial maneuvers without a court order. But I knew my mom. She didn't follow rules she didn't like. She just worked around them. Which is why, on March 18th, I got a call from my mom's bank. A representative said there had been an attempt to remove me as an authorized user on a joint account, an account that had some of my inheritance already in it. The bank had flagged it as suspicious and asked for confirmation from all parties before proceeding. Someone had tried to do it without telling me. I asked the bank to lock that account and send me detailed statements for the past 6 months. What I found was shocking. There had been 4 separate transfer attempts, each one just under $10,000, the threshold that would trigger federal reporting requirements. They'd stopped each time because the amount was too small, or the destination account looked suspicious, but it was clear that someone was trying to siphon money in increments. Rebecca filed another motion. This time, she included all of this documentation. She also included something else. She'd had a forensic accountant review the Family First Financial Solutions invoice, and he'd determined that the charges were completely fabricated. There was no legitimate service being provided. The company didn't exist in any legal database. And David Kramer, when the accountant did some digging, had a history of similar schemes in Colorado and California. He was a career con artist. My mom was his mark, and I was collateral damage. My mom called me on a Saturday morning. I almost didn't answer. "Sweetheart," she said, and her voice was different, smaller, frightened. "Can we talk?" "Yes," I said. "Can you come home, please? I need to talk to you in person." I almost said no. Every instinct told me to keep this conversation at arm's length, documented by email. But Rebecca had advised me that sometimes the best strategy was to let people think they were winning, and to witness them do it in real time. So I drove. It was a 5-hour drive from Seattle to my mom's house in Bellingham. I spent the entire time on a Bluetooth call with Rebecca, going over what to expect. She'll apologize, Rebecca predicted. She'll say David was manipulating her. She'll cry. She'll ask you to drop the legal action. Don't. When I pulled up to the house, I saw that Jennifer's car was already in the driveway. Marcus was there too. He'd apparently driven up from Portland. My mom was waiting on the porch. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was thinner. Her hands shook as she reached out to hug me. I let her. I could feel the fear in her body. Inside, we sat in the living room. My mom on one side of the couch, me on the other. Jennifer and Marcus flanked her like she was a prisoner they were guarding. There was no coffee, no pleasantries. "I need to ask you something," my mom said, "and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay," I said. "Did you hire a lawyer to take my house?" "No," I said. "I hired a lawyer to protect my inheritance from being stolen." "That's the same thing," Jennifer said hotly. "If you take legal action, we have to sell the house to cover the legal fees. That's not how civil court works," I said quietly. "And if your mom loses, the burden of paying lawyer fees will be on her, but she won't lose. Not with the evidence I have." My mom started crying. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "David said that if we restructured things, we could save on taxes. I was trying to help the family. I was trying to make sure. You were trying to steal 96 hours $250 from me," I said. "It wasn't cruel. It was just factual. You created a financial services company that doesn't exist. You tried to charge me for management of assets you were planning to take. When I refused, you orchestrated a family campaign to isolate me and make me question my own judgment. And then when that didn't work, you tried to move money out of my account in small increments to avoid federal reporting." "That's not," Marcus started. "It is," I said. "And here's the part part that matters. I have screenshots of every message. I have the spreadsheet where you documented how much money you were taking from each of us. I have the timeline of when you tried to move the money. I have a forensic accountant's report showing that David Kramer is a convicted con artist. And I have David's own emails showing that he knew exactly what he was doing was wrong. The room was silent. My mom was still crying, but she wasn't speaking. Jennifer looked pale. Marcus had his phone out, probably texting his lawyer, but it was too late. I'm not here to take the house, I continued. I'm not interested in destroying my mother, but I'm not going to let this stand either. David Kramer needs to go. The fake company needs to be dissolved, and we're going to do a formal accounting of the estate with an independent third party. Whatever my inheritance is, I'll accept it honestly, but no more schemes, no more manipulation. My mom looked up at me, and for a second, I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. I saw her seeing me clearly, not as the disappointing daughter, not as the selfish career woman, but as someone who was smarter than her, stronger than her, and who wasn't going to be broken. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I said. I'll tell him to stop. I'll tell him to leave me alone. She picked up her phone with shaking hands and dialed. I watched as she told David Kramer, in a voice I barely recognized as hers, that she was ending their professional relationship effective immediately, and that she'd be consulting with an independent financial advisor about winding down his services. He apparently tried to argue, but she hung up. Over the next month, Rebecca filed a settlement proposal. Here's what it included. First, a full accounting of the estate by an independent appraiser. Every asset, every account, every property was formally valued and documented. Second, a formal letter from my mom's attorney stating that David Kramer's Family First Financial Solutions was a personal contractor whose services were no longer required, and that no charges would be applied to the estate. Third, a signed statement from my mom affirming that my inheritance remained at its original projected value of $295,000, and that no deductions would be made to the inheritance I'd receive. Fourth, a court order requiring my mom to obtain pre-approval from an independent financial advisor before making any major asset decisions in the future. Fifth, a formal apology, not groveling but clear, where my mom acknowledged that she had attempted to manipulate the inheritance and had orchestrated a social campaign to isolate me. She didn't make excuses. Rebecca sent me the settlement agreement on a Friday afternoon. I read through it 3 times. Then I called her. "This is everything," I said. "How did you get her to agree to this?" "Because," Rebecca said, when she realized that the forensic accountant was going to testify about David Kramer's previous schemes, and when she understood that the judge was likely to freeze the entire estate pending investigation, which would leave her unable to pay her own living expenses, she understood that fighting this would cost her more than capitulating. "So it was a chess game," I said. "It was always a chess game," Rebecca said. "You just moved first." I signed the agreement on Monday morning. My mom signed it on Wednesday. It was finalized by the court on Friday. Afterward, I didn't call her. I didn't feel the urge to reconcile, but I also didn't feel the anger I'd felt before. What I felt was clarity. I felt relief. I felt like I'd taken my power back. Here's where it gets interesting. 6 weeks after the settlement was finalized, I got a call from Rebecca. She sounded excited, which was unusual. "Sarah, you need to know something," she said. "The forensic accountant was doing a deeper dive into David Kramer's background, and he found something. Kramer wasn't just doing this to your mom." "What do you mean?" "He'd been running the same scheme in Washington state for at least 5 years, with at least 12 different families. He'd show up, present himself as a financial advisor, convince someone that their estate was unoptimized, and then bill them for fake services while positioning himself as a trusted advisor." "Jesus," I said, "it gets better. Because of the evidence you gathered, and because of the forensic accountant's work, the Washington State Police opened a criminal investigation. They've already charged him with wire fraud and financial elder abuse, and they found records, detailed records, of every family he'd targeted. Their names, their account numbers, everything. Is my mom going to be prosecuted?" I asked. "No," Rebecca said. "She was his victim, not his accomplice. She made terrible decisions, but she was being manipulated by someone who was expert at manipulation. The state recognizes the distinction." What happened next was almost poetic, because Kramer, in his arrogance, had kept detailed records of everything. He had a notebook where he documented which family members were easiest to manipulate, which ones would resist, and what tactics worked best. He had emails where he'd outlined his strategy with my mom. He had bank records showing deposits from every victim. In my mom's notebook entry, he'd written, "Mother is ready. Daughter is the obstacle. Recommend social isolation strategy. Easy compliance after 4-6 weeks." Seeing my family reduced to a strategy memo was somehow worse than the actual theft. It meant we weren't people to him. We were just targets. But here's what it also meant. The police had evidence that Kramer had actively defrauded multiple people, and they had documentation of my mom being involved enough to understand she'd been victimized. The case against him was airtight. He got 4 years in federal prison, and in the aftermath, something something interesting happened. The other families he'd defrauded all came forward. Some of them formed a victim advocacy group. They were angry, but they were also united in a way I understood. My mom reached out to me by email 2 months after Kramer's conviction. She wrote, "Sarah, I am writing to you because I need to say something I should have said immediately after you confronted me. I was wrong, not misguided, not confused by a manipulator. Well, I was, but that doesn't excuse how I treated you. I created a narrative where you were selfish because it was easier than admitting that I was afraid. I was afraid of losing control of my money, my legacy, my place in this family. And instead of facing that fear honestly, I attacked the one person who had every right to tell me no. You were right when you said I was trying to steal from you. That's what it was. And when you stood up to me, I didn't learn a lesson. I went harder. I turned your siblings against you. I lied to our family. I made myself the victim, so you would look like the villain. I don't know if you can forgive me. I'm not asking you to, but I want you to know that I understand what I did, and I'm sorry. I'm in therapy. I'm working with a financial advisor who actually has credentials, and I'm learning that the love I felt for my children was real, even if the way I expressed it was toxic. You are my daughter. You were always my daughter, and the inheritance you receive will be exactly what was promised. No more games, no more conditions. I love you, Mom." I read that email 5 times. I cried the first time. By the 5th time, I could read it without tears. I didn't respond immediately. I'm still not sure how I feel about my mom, but I know how I feel about what happened. I know that I trusted myself. I documented the truth. I didn't let shame or family loyalty or the fear of being called selfish make me question what I'd seen with my own eyes. The settlement was officially recorded in March of last year. My inheritance, the full $295,000, was placed in a protected account that I now have direct access to. I used some of it to pay Rebecca's legal fees. I used some of it to pay the forensic accountant. The rest is sitting there, a safety net, a reminder that I am capable of protecting myself. My relationship with my mom is different now. It's not warm. We don't have Sunday calls anymore, but we do have quarterly video chats, and we're civil. She asks about my work. I ask about her garden. We don't pretend the past didn't happen, but we also don't live in it. Marcus and Jennifer eventually apologized. Marcus came around first. He called me and said that once everything came out, he realized his mom had fed him a completely false version of events to turn him against me. He felt ashamed. I told him I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Jennifer took longer. She actually came up to Seattle 6 months after the settlement was finalized. We sat in a coffee shop, and she cried, and I watched her understand finally that our mom had chosen to manipulate all of us. It wasn't malicious on her part. She was just a piece in our mom's narrative, just like I was. Jennifer's willingness to participate in my isolation had been because she'd believed the story she was told. I'm not sure we'll ever be close again, but we're working on it. As for David Kramer, he's currently in a federal facility in Oregon. He'll be released in 2028, assuming good behavior, which I doubt. I don't think about him much. He was always going to be a predator. The real lesson is that predators don't need willing victims. They just need people who are scared or lonely or convinced that their own judgment is unreliable. The thing I want you to understand, the thing I wish I'd understood earlier, is this. Sometimes family uses against you the very tools that are supposed to protect you. They use loyalty. They use history. They use shame. They use the threat of abandonment. And if you're not careful, if you don't document what's happening, if you don't trust your own eyes, you can talk yourself into believing that theft is love. I didn't, and I'm grateful for that. These days, I live the same life I lived before. I go to my job. I call my mom on holidays. I see my friends. I'm putting together my own home in Seattle with money I know is rightfully mine. But I'm different in one way. I no longer apologize for being cautious with people I love. I no longer wait for permission to ask questions about finances that involve me. And I no longer accept the narrative that protecting myself makes me selfish. My therapist, yes, I got one, pointed out that my mom's greatest success wasn't in her attempted theft. It was in the years of messaging that made me question whether my instinct to ask questions was a flaw. It was in making me feel like my practical nature was a liability instead of a strength. The real victory, she said, isn't that I won the legal case. It's that I trust myself again. So here's what I want to say to anyone watching this, who's felt the sting of family betrayal, who's watched people they love weaponize loyalty and shame. Your instinct to protect yourself is not a character flaw. Your caution is not paranoia. Your need for documentation and clarity is not a sign that you're difficult or cold. These are the things that save you. And if your family makes you feel wrong for having them, that's information too. I'm Sarah Chen, and this is what happened when my mom tried to steal my inheritance, and I decided she wasn't going to get away with it. If you've been through something like this, if your family's betrayal hit you from inside your own home, tell me in the comments. What would you have done? Would you have fought, or would you have let it go? I'm curious what you think. And if you want to hear more stories about family drama with real consequences, hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more where this came from. Thanks for listening.